Hello, this is the local church in Rugby. It's a church designed by Butterfield, so like Keble College, like Rugby School just up the road. And Butterfield was one of the great architects of Victorian England. And Nadine Dorries has spoken about sophistry. And I thought this was a good place, as good a place as any, to get into the question of what is a sophist. A sophist was originally a 5th century teacher, a person who was teaching about wisdom, Sophia. But it became a dirty word, and by the time of Plato, or indeed possibly by the time of Socrates, a sophist was somebody who was playing games with intelligence.
So let's just cut to the quick here. When Rishi Sunak, the British Prime Minister, says that Boris Johnson tried to get him to effectively circumnavigate the rules about the honours, including yours, is he telling the truth?
So he's using something which I think they call sophistry, which is using a language and words in order to deceive.
I'm not sure Nadine Dorries is thoroughly aware of what she's saying here. She accuses Rishi Sunak of being a sophist. Well, the whole point about the sophists was they preferred wealth, fame, high office to truth. The sophists, Plato thought, were not philosophers. They were simply selling education to rich people. That chimes in, doesn't it, with Nadine Dorries's class warfare that she started with Cameron and Osborne. Well, she's probably got a point. And maybe that's why she's using the term sophist. Sophistry is about wealth. These sophists were the tutors to the oligarchs of their day. But, you go back to Evelyn Waugh, who famously said at one point, even rich people have souls. I think there's more to what was wrong with sophistry in ancient Greece. The sophists were not just selling knowledge, they were perverting knowledge, and that's the important issue. So it wasn't just knowledge for the rich, because if that were the case, Nadine Dorries has slightly nailed this one, and I don't think she has really. Because Rishi is rich. So to accuse Rishi of sophistry, that sort of works. But I don't think that's what she intended. I think what she was trying to do was to use a very loose understanding of sophistry, that a sophist is somebody who is fiddling with the meaning of words. Now, I must say I do hate people who mess around with the meaning of words. If words have no meaning, if they don't have a meaning that we all agree on, then the word is useless and should simply be jettisoned. And words are changing all the time, and if we don't keep up with the changing of words, then we're not doing our job properly. Then we're not actually involved in proper communication. We need to change with the times. We need to be up with the latest lingo. We need to be aware of how words have changed their meaning. So there's no point in running around the place and trying to preserve the meaning of a word from the 1950s if it's got a different meaning today. That's absurdity. That's knocking your head against the brick wall.
But it's quite emotional, actually, because I've always revered the House of Lords. I think it's actually a place where I know a lot of people criticise it, and make fun of it almost, but it's a place where all the heavy lifting of the scrutiny of bills actually takes place. The Commons has become this set piece theatre for Prime Minister's questions and for other big pieces, but actually where all the heavy lifting, where it's stuffed full of people with expertise and wisdom and knowledge, it's the Lords. And so it's a kind of place you look at.
There are a lot of old useless duffers there as well.
There may possibly be, but I couldn't comment. But there's also a lot of really serious heavy lifting goes on there. And it is a place that, from my background, no one would ever have dreamt that someone from my background could get.
With people who don't know your background, why do you say that?
So I was born in a place called Breck Road in Liverpool, which I think is probably classified as one of the poorest streets in the country, not just in Liverpool, one of the poorest wards. And, it was most of my life, the first almost 30 years of my life were very tough. It was, financially very, very hard. I literally, it sounds like something out of a Dickens novel, but I literally had to borrow shoes to go to school. I literally know what hunger pains feel like. And, I was born a long time ago. I was born in 57. The 60s went great for, in the early 70s for surviving. And there wasn't a benefit system or, the safety net that there is today for people. So it was pretty tough. And to think that, I didn't even know what a university was. I didn't know that universities even existed. It was just something that the House of Lords, I wouldn't have known. If you'd asked me at 21, do you know what the House of Lords is? I wouldn't even have known what it was. So to be told that you're being put on a list, to be nominated to go into the House of Lords, it's just like, it's unbelievable. And for me, it's so important because, I did this a lot when I was Secretary of State in DCMS. It was all about making sure that ladders were put down into those backgrounds to give people opportunities to work in the arts and culture because they don't now. Because the kind of people who do work in arts and culture are those that went to independent school or, whose dad's a producer or whatever. So for me, it was kind of, that's the next stage, If I go into the Lords, it actually sends a signal to other people. Doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter what you're born to, doesn't matter how poor you are, if you can get there. I call it the class ceiling or the class ceiling where I come from. I wanted to break that ceiling.
Okay, so it means a lot to you.
Yeah, huge.
Clearly, I can tell that, right? It means a lot to you. But I would imagine serving your constituents as a member of parliament also means a lot to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the
And I've done that for 18
great
years.
honours that anyone can have in this country,
Yeah.
to be an elected official representing your constituents. So that then will obviously be an inevitable question to come. But from that moment Boris Johnson tells you that's his intention, do you just assume it's going to happen?
So what I thought was, I expected someone to contact me and talk to me. I thought it might be Holac, who's the House of Lords.
What's the normal procedure?
So this is why there is no normal procedure. I couldn't find this out. The normal procedure I've discovered is that Holac...
So who is Holac?
House of Lords Appointment Commission.
Right, so they had the right to approve or disapprove?
No, they have no right to approve or disapprove. So this rhetoric which has been coming out of Downing Street is that the House of Lords did not approve. It's absolutely nonsense. They don't have that. It's not their mandate. So Boris's list goes into number 10. Number 10, hand it over to Holac. Holac do the vetting, that's police checks and HMRC checks. Then they hand that list back to number 10. Number 10 then hand that list over to the King. So what happened was, Holac said to number 10, this MP needs to make a public announcement that she will stand down within 6 months of being put back to you on this list. Nobody from number 10 communicated that to me. Boris found out about this and had a meeting with Rishi last week. 6 months had elapsed since the vetting had been done. Why Downing Street waited 6 months, I've no idea. 6 months elapsed. Boris said to Rishi Sunak, you just need to ask for the re-vetting, which would take a matter of days. Rishi used very weasel words. He said to Boris Johnson, and that's the only thing Boris asked him to do.
And here I'm going to cut in, if you don't mind. I can't stand any more of this love fest between Morgan and Dorries. It's not true. It's not true. It's not the only thing Boris asked of Rishi. We've already heard that Boris begged Rishi to let his father be knighted, and Rishi refused. It's not the only thing Boris asked of Rishi. So this is a very selective summary of what happens. Very selective.
He said to Boris, whatever list Holac sent back to me, I will sign off. Boris left that meeting with the impression that James Forsyth, who is Sunak's political secretary, was going to ask for the re-vetting, for the list to come forward, and then Rishi would sign it off. But of course, Rishi was using those words because he knew a situation had been engineered, i.e. the information Holac had given had not been communicated to me, and therefore my name would not be on the list because I hadn't done what Holac asked number 10 to ask me to do because nobody had asked me to do it.
Holac have let it be known that they did not support some of the people put forward.
So they couldn't because they couldn't support the people who'd been put forward.
The problem is I don't know whether Nadine Dorries is telling the truth. I don't know whether it's a convenient story. I don't know whether it's false. But I do know that it's unbelievably disloyal. She and Alok Sharma and Adam. They all call themselves Conservatives. Surely their first job as a Conservative is to support the leader. And here she is talking about Rishi Sunak in a way that even Keir Starmer would be cautious about describing the current Prime Minister. Weasel words. Weasel words. It's really, really shocking. There is only one sophist that I can see in this story, and that is Nadine Dorries. A person who is distorting language, a person who is playing some sort of, putting on a performance of her life. For what? For what? I suspect she's trying to topple Rishi Sunak. It's a disgraceful exhibition of disloyalty. But she'd already started that long ago. And I'm sure she's been doing it behind the scenes. I wouldn't have had her in the party. I would have thrown her out the moment she started making money on Talk TV. And what does that say? It says only one thing about Rishi Sunak. It says that he's weak. We know that. We know that. But weasel words? No. The only weasel words in evidence here are from Nadine Dorries. Oh, and probably Piers Morgan, who's egging her on. And more than that, interviewing somebody who works for the same channel. That is so nepotistic and cosy. Oh, for goodness sake, find somebody else to interview Piers, or just get off the television.